Alright, so on the channel, when it comes to covering My Hero Academia content, you guys are used to us covering a whole slew of different topics and themes and what have you. But this time around, we wanted to try something a little different and have both of us, KJ and I, in the same video discussing the same topic. And what we will be covering will be a battle of sorts between two characters, specifically this time around, Shoto versus Bakugo. We want to get to the bottom of who would exactly win in a one-on-one fight.
Who would win the second time in a one-on-one fight, because we saw who won the first time. But yes, this is confirmation that there are two people on this channel.
Okay, so as you can tell by KJ's disposition and clear bias, we will each be taking a side, and he is taking the side of Bakugo, whereas I am taking the side of Shoto. We're going to advocate for both of our sides, and you will be the final judgment. You will be able to tell us who you feel would win based on our conversation here. Now, to start, we will have two different scenarios in which these characters will be engaged in a fight against one another. First and foremost, we have a sort of sports festival-esque battle where no support items will be involved. However, we will be removing the ring out stipulation because I feel like that just is too limiting. These characters have a whole lot in their arsenals, so to bind them to a specific area would be pretty lame. And then our next battle will be them actually using their actual hero costumes and all their support items.
Right, so this way we get to see the two characters fight with their raw potential, no help, and then we get to see them fight with their support items, which boost their abilities to their maximum potential.
Yeah, exactly. And we will be beginning with no support items first and foremost. KJ, would you like to begin advocating why you feel Bakugo would be able to win?
Be able to win? You mean why I feel like Bakugo will win, but okay. So, in all the fights we've seen of Bakugo so far, he starts off his fights in a very aggressive way. He charges right up and closes the distance.
Right.
And so, in a second fight against Todoroki, I don't see any reason why he would do anything different. He would again charge in aggressively. And obviously, like he's done before, and we've seen him do in other fights, Todoroki would probably try to counter this with ice, right?
Maybe.
Maybe, okay. And so yeah, Bakugo would probably charge in aggressively towards Todoroki, who would then try to counter it with ice, as he's done in other fights, including the one against Bakugo the first time. But this wouldn't slow Bakugo down, as we've seen he's able to pretty easily mash through Todoroki's ice, which will then allow him to close the distance, now making the fight close quarters.
Okay, that's a fair point. I will rebut, however, that in the sports festival, they were only required to be within a certain vicinity. So in this case, where we're taking away that limitation, Shoto would be able to move and be placed wherever he wants and be able to keep pursuing that distance and moving himself back as he, spreads that ice or what have you. However, Shoto does not only have ice in this case, he actually has fire. And as we've seen, this guy can just endlessly heat himself up, and not even Bakugo would really want to get that close to that immense heat. If it's able to melt that iron guy, who's like pretty much Kirishima's little brother, then I don't think that Bakugo could handle that kind of intense heat.
I'm pretty sure I've observed in all of Todoroki's fights we've seen is that I don't feel like he's a very mobile character. He should be in theory because of the ice, right? He could slide on it, he could use it to move around terrain very easily, but in my opinion, he's a very stationary fighter. He doesn't move around too much. Do you disagree with that? Compared to Midoriya,
he's definitely not as mobile as the likes of Midoriya or Bakugo, but we have seen him use his toolkit in that way to be able to travel a bit differently than just straight up running.
Hasn't that been mostly out of combat though? Like, he does it, but I feel like he does it in other situations. For example, like during the UA Sports Festival obstacle course, he used his
right.
Yeah. So in that type of situation, I feel like, of course, he uses it, but in a fight, I feel like he's more inclined to just stay in one place and defend himself.
I think it depends on who he's up against, because if he's up against Bakugo, I feel like at the very least he would know, all right, let me not just stand in one place. And when he doesn't move too much, it's probably because he doesn't need to up against who he's fighting.
And I mean not make an assumption here and it seems stupid, but they're both considered emitter types, right?
Yeah.
Okay, they're both emitter types, but Todoroki, I feel like he's more of a he's fought so far more of a long range emitter type. Like he uses the ice to keep you at a distance or to try to crush you without you coming close. You know, I don't want that.
Yeah.
Not necessarily. I'm not saying he couldn't handle a close fight, but he seems like he doesn't want that. That's not his ideal fight.
No.
That's what he's shown so far, I think.
Yeah.
But Bakugo, also an emitter type, he doesn't have as much range. He's shown range with the explosions, but not as much. So yes, I feel like they both would want opposite things in the fight.
Mm-hmm.
Bakugo is trying to close the distance. Todoroki is trying to maintain the distance, keep Bakugo away.
Makes sense.
Now, let's assume, I know you said you think he'd be able to keep him off with the fire, right?
Right.
But let's assume Bakugo gets in close.
Okay.
He manages to close the distance, which he's ended up doing in a couple situations now against Todoroki. One being the sports festival, of course, during the tournament fight.
Mm-hmm.
But also, in that same arc, it wasn't a fight per se, but during the obstacle course race, they came in close contact to try to push past each other.
Mm-hmm.
Both times, it looked like Todoroki had an advantage, if I'm being honest, because while Bakugo is fast, his movements are very fluid, he's fast. Surprisingly, I've seen that Todoroki has managed to evade the attacks. In the sports festival fight, he hesitated, obviously, because the fire situation, he didn't end up doing what he could have ended up doing.
Yeah.
And then another time, during the race, he again brushed past Bakugo, countering his attack. So surprisingly, I find that Todoroki has pretty good reflexes.
No, definitely. Like when he was fighting against Midoriya, he was even willing to take the brunt of Midoriya's hit to then use his ice on him and then stagger him for the remainder of the fight. So I don't think Todoroki is necessarily a stranger to damage. He definitely wouldn't be able to take as much as Bakugo for sure, but he doesn't really need to. Just because if he manages to get even a sizable hit on you, you're in trouble. I mean, Bakugo doesn't exactly have range, as you said, especially without his support items.
Yeah, like it's kind of, I feel like it's a little inconsistent, honestly. How much range he has with these blasts without the guns.
Yeah.
Sometimes it looks like these things are like, little explosions, and then other times they're huge. I'm not trying to debate if he has range or not. I'm just saying, like, it's worth noting that it's kind of inconsistent how I don't really know the max of those blasts.
That's fair. I think it has to do with potentially the terrain that he's in, because his quirk depends on his sweat and him being worked up and what have you. So the more he goes, probably the larger his explosions end up becoming over time. But the thing is, Todoroki has projectiles, and he will always have that at his disposal. He can deal with you close range, but it's not really his forte. He does have a lot of things to keep you away.
Yeah, he has options.
He also has area of effect, which is like he can legit turn terrain into his immediately. It doesn't matter where you place this fight, he will always have terrain advantage, to the point where Shoto is able to turn the entire field into ice. Have you ever walked on like straight up ice? You are slipping.
Yeah, of course it's hard to walk on ice. Nobody wants to do that. But we've seen Bakugo in response to this ice. I'm pretty sure it was during the obstacle race. But at some point, definitely, he's responded to this ice by blasting himself off it. Yeah, and then sending himself in the air.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Where for some reason Bakugo is hella comfortable in the air, right? Which is strange.
That's fair.
It's fun to watch. Bakugo seems hella comfortable in the air.
Yeah, he likes to fly.
And I enjoy watching that. Just, I enjoy seeing him fight like that. It's very cool. He's done this in a lot of fights now, against Deku too, Todoroki. So yeah, even if the floor was ice, right? That would send Bakugo in the air.
Yeah, no, and that's a cool thing, because he has a sort of answer to Todoroki's ice on the ground.
And then let's say he ends up in the air, right? Mm-hmm. Todoroki is probably still he'll respond to this. He'll still, because when you're in the air, in theory, you should be less mobile. But Bakugo is still pretty damn mobile in the air.
Yeah, and it's impressive.
Because other characters, Uraraka, when she's in the air, she's not that fast. She can't swift around like that.
He's comfortable.
He is really comfortable in the air. So even if Todoroki tried to do some things to him while he's in the air, whether that be sending up ice pillars or shooting flame in a direction, I'm really confident that Bakugo would be able to dodge them and still continue to close that gap.
Here's my thing though. In changing the terrain and effectively forcing Bakugo to then take up the sky, Shoto is getting his preference. And in this fight where we don't have support items, Bakugo can only manage to fly for so long. If he is forced to fly for the entirety of the fight, that is taking away some of his destructive potential. That is taking away his like preference, really, because that takes a certain amount of control, and he has to have his hands utilizing that ability. He can't make explosions anywhere else on his body. So Shoto has him right where he wants him, and if you're up in the air, projectiles, hazards, what have you, like that's a lot easier to deal out. And even if he does come close enough, as we've seen, Shoto can just make a blazing inferno, and there is no way that Bakugo wants to be anywhere near that. Even if he lands a blow, this man could just set himself on fire, and it's a wrap.
In most fights, you'd think, okay, you're forcing the enemy into the air, right? You're taking him off the ground, and that's a bad situation. But I don't really think that matters too much in this fight, because I think Bakugo's more comfortable in the air than he is on the ground, if I'm being honest.
Really?
Because I realize in almost every fight, I feel like not in every fight, okay, in a good amount of his fights, the key ones, the one against Deku outside in the training grounds, the one against Todoroki, and I feel like a couple more, he's always in the air. That doesn't seem like somebody doesn't want to be there or is uncomfortable.
But to only be able to do that and not be able to rest,
I know it's limiting.
I'm
just saying it's not as detrimental as it would be to another character.
No, absolutely. I don't think that that immediately throws him off to the point where he can't do anything. He's just a sitting duck. He is still a big problem. But to take away that versatility from Bakugo, who is a very versatile fighter, that's quite limiting. And I think Shoto, being more of a calculated fighter than a just like instinctual one, would then use that to his advantage. Another thing would be that, Bakugo can take a hit. He can take a hit for sure. If he could fight Deku and take all those attacks, he can definitely take a hit.
Let's not forget his hits from All Might delivered to him.
Yeah, no, he's durable. This kid is durable. However, against Shoto, it's more than just durability that you have to consider, because the most durable character in the class, Kirishima, could not handle Shoto's temperature change. The fact that he can make things incredibly hot or incredibly cold to inhumane levels is a whole power in of itself. You can only last so long against that, especially Bakugo, who depends on his ability to sweat. Without his support items is even more so. Shoto could effectively, if this goes on for long enough and if he makes the temperature that drastic, he can make it so that this kid cannot even utilize his explosions as well.
But, sorry, my bad to interrupt you, but let's not forget that when he's using the fire, right?
Right.
He can't just indefinitely keep himself burning. Even Endeavor can't do that.
No.
He can't just keep this fire on forever.
That's
going
fair.
to have to stop.
He has a limitation on that. However, he also has a built-in counter and like stabilization to that. And he doesn't need to turn the entire place ablaze to heat himself up. He can just, be rubbing his hands together and just starting a fire internally for himself as a set place. However, he can have the rest of the terrain still icy.
Right, but I'm just saying, he can't just sit there as a ball of fire for a long time as well. He can't just keep that up forever. He's going to have to switch off to the ice.
Absolutely.
At some point. Now, as for how Bakugo would counter this fire, if he was just holding the fire, I feel like Bakugo would then jump back. If this fire was that intense, right? That intense, I can't even be close to you.
Mm-hmm.
He would back up, of course, as anybody would.
Yeah. And
then from there, he might then look to see if he can it depends on the range of these blasts. What can I do? How close can I get? But if the fire is that intense, that's probably where Todoroki has him in this fight, because you could say stall out how long he can keep this fire going and just keep dodging, dodge,
mm-hmm.
run down this timer however long it is. And we haven't seen Bakugo in long ass fights, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, he finishes it fast.
Right, so here's something I'm curious about. is it possible that as Bakugo fights, you're working up, right?
Right.
He sweat. Is it fair to say the longer he's in a fight, the more he's gonna sweat?
Yes, and that is definitely true, I'd say. But at the same time, there is a reason that he needs his support items and such. Like, he could end up hurting himself because he is resistant to his explosions. He is not invulnerable to them.
That's the inconsistency, I feel, because it's not clear what that limit is at all.
I think we haven't gotten there yet because, like you said, his fights are really fast and brief. He goes about it really quickly.
Yeah.
So if he was in a long fight, I don't think he could handle to keep up.
When he was in the fight against Todoroki the first time at the start, right? We all know the moment. All those blocks of ice start coming in, and he just blasting them, blast. I can't tell you how many times he blasted it, of course, in that little bit of time, but it was very rapid fire, very quick, a lot of consecutive blasts, right?
Yeah.
That didn't do anything to him, obviously. He just kept going from there, like nothing happened. So, he's obviously able to let off a lot of blasts rapidly. Fine. That's not what causes the strain on his body. So I'm just thinking it's the power of these, the strength of these blasts. When he was fighting All Might, he wasn't letting off little firecrackers, enough to just, break ice,
Yeah.
It's All Might, he has to put more force into those blasts, which is why I think the limit on his body kicks in. I think it's more of the strength of the blast, not necessarily how much he's using it. I could be wrong, but I'm just saying.
And I don't know if Shoto would want to play this card even. But like in my head, it's mostly he would be cooling things down to make sure that Bakugo's blasts are tame. But if he wanted to just, play a little on the risky side, he could make things really hot, make it so that Bakugo is sweating profusely. His blast would be devastating, huge, but it would still be at his detriment as well.
Yeah, and I'm sure Bakugo could take that strain a little bit, and he's probably increased how much of that strain, or
he's definitely improved, I'd imagine.
Because remember the training and stuff at the where
the forest. I just call it the forest.
Okay, yeah, the training at the forest grounds, whatever, before the invasion attack, whatever. We saw him training his quirk and stuff, so we know he can take a strain. He can. The limit is higher.
Right.
So I'm sure he can handle it for a bit. This could be where the fight gets bad for him if he gets to a point where he is strained. But I think it'd be a while before he gets there. And it's also worth noting that if he's really letting off these strong blasts at a certain point, he could probably shake Todoroki up because he could blast the ground to make Todoroki unbalanced, or cause Todoroki some terrain issues for himself.
The thing is, right, Bakugo is fighting not only Shoto but also the terrain, and I think even diverting his attention to trying to mitigate that problem would be a point of losing for him, because Shoto is in control with that. Shoto can change it at a whim, whereas Bakugo has to more so be on the defense, and he is an offensive fighter. He likes to be on offense. If he has to worry about terrain, he has to shift his plans, he has to be defensive, and he has to try to deal with that while also dealing with Shoto, who is not just letting him do whatever he wants. He's attacking.
When we're talking about terrain, we're mostly talking about ice, right?
Right. Or fire.
Yeah, but mostly
ice, to be honest.
Yeah, mostly ice. This is what I'm just trying to make that.
Yeah.
So let's be honest though. This ice is a distraction. I'll acknowledge distraction. It is something to pay attention to. But I don't think it's a big problem for him specifically. We see how quickly he can burst through them, pop through them. It's like, okay, block of ice in my face, boom, quickly gone, boom, quickly gone. It's not something that... I don't even know how dense Todoroki can make this ice. Like, how thick a sheet of ice can he...
Oh, it can get, up there. Okay, you've seen it gets crazy.
We saw that even during that first fight where he was approaching Todoroki. It took... he was blasting his way through it like he would a cave, right? But it depends how quickly he can make these thick sheets of ice, because if you're making... decent sized pieces of ice, he could break it easily. But if you're sending big, thick pieces of ice, I think that would slow him down more. But again, at a certain point, his blasts are more strong, so maybe that's not a big issue.
The thing is, during the sports festival, for the majority of it, the vast majority of it, Shoto refused to use his fire, and he was just using his ice. And he was ending the fights quick enough to where it didn't hinder him too much. He wasn't getting too cold. But you could see it in his early fights where, like against Sero even, where he just in a single moment lifts up an entire like mountain-sized pillar of ice. It's insane what he can do. And to think that with his, fire involved now, he can regulate it a little better. To think that he could do all of that like several times over. I don't know if Bakugo can handle that for so long. I think the name of the game is if Shoto can elongate the fight, and I think he has the tools necessary to do that against someone as capable as Bakugo.
So while the big blocks of ice, right, if they were thick, not just small ones, it would be a problem for him. It would be a problem for Bakugo. It wouldn't be a problem to the point where he can't break through them, but they might cause more fatigue, slow him down.
Yeah.
They would be able to keep him at a distance if they were thick, And I guess you're right. We've seen him make very thick sheets of ice. However, again, Bakugo is very fast. While Todoroki can create these sheets of ice quickly, Bakugo can also evade them very quickly, I feel like. We've seen him get from point A to point B in an instant. He's very fast.
And on that note, I think, once again, with the temperature shift, he can slow, he doesn't need to directly touch Bakugo to slow him down. All he needs to do is impact his quirk, which, if he's not sweating enough, and, we saw he had to get a whole different costume for the winter. He's not prepared for this. He's really not.
But one thing to take note of though, even if Todoroki makes these big sheets of ice, big blocks of ice as causing him problem, I already think Bakugo could close the distance with his regular quirk movement. But if you don't think that's the case, consider the fact that he has that Hauser move he does. That's like a missile. The one he used against Todoroki. That move is very destructive, and I'm pretty sure President Mike even, compared it to like a missile. It's very fast, it's very destructive, and it can break through a shit ton of ice to just be blunt.
Yeah, that's definite.
I'm confident he could close the distance if I'm being honest, just off that move alone. If nothing else, that move would close the distance, I feel like, and then it would again become a close
I think that Bakugo would have to close the distance, and my point again, if he does, then Shoto just heats up, and he doesn't have to heat up as much as he did against I can't remember that guy's name off the top of my head, but the Iron Kid,
Silver guy.
Yeah, he doesn't need to remain heated up indefinitely. He's not trying to kill him. Just like a quick blast, like a quick flare up, and Bakugo has to he has to give up that pursuit really quickly.
At this point, with the temperatures increased, Todoroki is at an advantage, right? But this is Bakugo. Let's be realistic. I don't think, unless his temperature goes to inhumane levels of hot, I still think Bakugo would still try to blast his way through it, still try to close that distance to still get that finishing move. It sounds crazy, but it's Bakugo, you know what I mean?
Shoto has proven himself to be pretty damn stubborn himself.
They're both pretty
so, hey, it's what you want to imagine, really.
Yeah, at that point, we don't know how the characters, really would react, but I do feel like Bakugo would push it, and of course Todoroki wouldn't give up, so from there, leave it up to you guys, I guess. So let's say we get to a point where the distance is closed now, right?
Right.
Bakugo's up close to Todoroki. You mentioned the fire being a problem for Bakugo, but let's not forget Bakugo also has a flash grenade move that he does with his quirk. This move, obviously it's not going to do lethal damage to Todoroki, but it could throw him off.
Yeah.
It will throw you off. I think anybody getting blinded in the eyes suddenly will throw you off. We've seen Solar Flare Dragon Ball. It throws you off. So I think if he does that move, he will then have an advantage and possibly be able to finish it. How do you feel about that?
I think that that of course requires him to get especially close, and that is a very difficult task against Todoroki. But if he did manage to get this off in a hypothetical, as this whole thing is hypothetical really, that would definitely throw Todoroki off. I'm not sure how long it would throw him off for. And his response to that would probably be just, putting up as many defenses as he possibly can in the immediate sense.
Probably like hopping back and putting up ice or
something. Yeah, put up a lot of layers of just defensive ice and hazards. Maybe like even just put up like, sharp pillars of ice to where he's not easily accessible. And with Bakugo, his quirk is not built for stealth. So even if he had to rely on his other senses, I think Shoto would be able to recover. I don't think that this is a long-lasting effect. It's more like, a few seconds at best. So it would definitely make him more vulnerable, but I don't know if it would throw him off his axis that much.
We don't know how crazy the move really is, you know, but yeah, at that point, once they get that close into combat, once they get that close in range, and both of them are at somewhat of disadvantage, Todoroki possibly blinded for X amount of time, and Bakugo being exposed to extreme heat. I guess from there it's just up in the air. Who would win? It just depends on how characters react. But I guess that's all we can really speculate on up to that point. So yeah.
Alright, so now that we've talked at length about these characters fighting against each other without their support items, let us try and now add their support items and see if that changes things at all.
Okay, so to start, should we just, for people that don't know, should we just point out the support items that they do have? Just so it's clear it's clear what's at play, you know?
Sure.
So when it comes to support items for Bakugo, he does not carry too much, although what he does carry, for the most part, comes with weight.
Yeah.
He has his grenade bracers, which store his sweat and also reduce the amount of damage he takes from his own quirk once he reaches a certain level. Takes away some of the strain.
Yeah, pretty gross, but yeah.
Gross.
Yeah, a friggin' tank of his own sweat. Ugh.
I'm tripping, yeah, that is nasty, my bad. I wasn't thinking about it enough. Okay. Bakugo also has grenades stored with his own sweat, which I guess, again, gross, but explosive. And he has knee pads for murderous purposes, which he has not used yet.
Right.
And that is all Bakugo really comes with when it comes to support items.
Alright, so Shoto has most of his support items work for the same cause. It's mostly just temperature regulation more and more than what he has innately. So like his vest will be able to sense if he's a little too hot, a little too cold, and it'll heat him up or cool him down. His wristbands do the same thing. He also has snow boots, which allow him to traverse along his ice a little bit better than he would innately. And finally, like the collar of his jacket, I believe, or his jacket itself, has a fire-resistant fiber. So he's not, burning through his own clothing or having his fire all-consuming over him to where it's unbearable. And that's about it, honestly. I think, actually, he does have a utility belt, which I don't think would very much come into play with this. He has, like, pain medication, water, just, like, little first aid things.
Right. So, I'm assuming this fight will probably start off the same way. For my character, at least, Bakugo, he would probably do the same thing to start.
Yeah, he is pretty linear in terms of how he at least starts a fight.
Yeah, so, and you imagine any change on your end with things in play at the start? I think honestly, Shoto is gonna be just about the same. Although he will be way more willing to go even more out. Like he'll be willing to deal out even more just because he has that added regulation. Right, that is a pretty clutch support item.
Yeah.
But yes, Bakugo would again, of course, charge in, try to get as close as he can. Probably just with stronger blast now that he doesn't have to hold back at all for the support item.
Right.
The only difference I really imagine with Bakugo's support items in this fight is that because of his grenade gauntlet thing, bracer, he has that deadly attack that he can launch that we saw in, the first season of the anime that he did to Deku inside the building.
Yeah.
If Hauser wasn't enough to clear, if that Hauser move isn't enough to clear blocks of ice, that move will definitely erase anything in his path. That finishing move that the grenade gauntlet has will definitely erase any ice in the way by a good margin. And again, will be further help for Bakugo in closing distance on Todoroki. I can't imagine he would use grenades too much in this fight against Todoroki, but if Todoroki decided to overwhelm him with ice in all directions, he might drop some here and there to help clear the field.
Yeah, I think that Bakugo is a character that more so leans and depends on his support items than Shoto. Much to dismay of All Might and how he feels in regards to depending on support items. But we're here, and I do think that it gives him a better shot at taking down Shoto. However, like I said, Shoto is able to utilize his abilities a bit more, so I think it would, if nothing else, balance things out to where it's very similar to our previous fight. I think another thing to consider, although we are talking about a support item fight, I do think that Shoto would have a pretty feasible time taking down Bakugo's support items, or at least breaking them, or causing malfunction. Mostly because he is dealing with temperature, and you know how technology goes with temperature. It can malfunction at extreme heats, it can malfunction at extreme cold, and be too stiff. And I feel like Bakugo might not have the easiest time with that. And the fact that he had to have 2 different sets of costumes for the winter season and for his regular season, that might put him at a disadvantage, just because if he's going with either one, that means that there is a sort of limitation on him in that regard.
I don't know if it's so much a Bakugo thing though, the whole winter costume thing, because I'm pretty sure almost every character in the class, if not all of them, have a winter costume. So I think even Todoroki has a winter edition costume. I wouldn't hold Bakugo's winter costume too much against him more than you would just any other character, because not only I don't think we saw new gloves to keep his arms more cold, I don't think we saw new gloves to keep his hands more warm or anything. He got changes, but he got changes just like any other human would in the winter time. I think it's just to stay warm. Nobody want to be cold in general, So I'm just saying that I don't think it's so much a Bakugo thing. The whole having winter costume thing is just it's winter. I want a new costume. Everybody has a new costume to just not get too cold. Bakugo isn't more susceptible to the cold than any other normal person. You could say his quirk relies on sweat, but I'm pretty sure he can sweat at will. So it's not so much a Bakugo thing, this whole winter costume.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's fair. I think that characters like Sue are way more susceptible to cold, and things like that. Bakugo is a normal human in regards to his ability to handle extreme temperatures. However, the fact that Shoto did not need to change his costume for the winter does tell you, hey, I'm good regardless. Wherever I'm at, I'm good. You, on the other hand, need to change things up, big boy.
And also about his gauntlets. You mentioned that Todoroki might break them. Well, I think Bakugo is very much used to that now. They break in pretty much every encounter he ends up in. So, yeah, he would probably either lose them or have them malfunction in a fight against Todoroki. But, again, it'll just bring him back down to, I guess, more like where he was in the past fight we described.
Yeah, and I mean, at that point, Shoto was in a better position than he was in the past fight we described. So, I mean, that's kind of like, you break those, what you doing?
Alright, asshole.
I don't want to get too much in the hypothetical of what they don't have and what they could have and what have you. But man, I hope that when these characters do fight, again, that Shoto is actually able to fly like Endeavor at the very least, because that would just make this a whole different battle. He's definitely not as offensive as his father in terms of close range or what have you. But man, if he added that to his arsenal, that'd be devastating.
Yeah, for a big man, Endeavor's he's pretty swift and acrobatic. I don't know if you can. I mean, yeah, you saw the animation in that last fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, acrobatic. So yeah, I would, because of Bakugo losing his support items, potentially, in this fight due to malfunction or them being destroyed, in the support item fight, I would probably give it to you on Todoroki, just because at that point it becomes mostly just him at what he was prior versus Todoroki, more upgraded.
Yeah, and
so in that sense, yeah, probably.
At that point, it's Bakugo definitely depends on his support items more than Shoto does. And like I said earlier, All Might made a point about heroes who depend too much on their support items. It can be very challenging if that part of the fight is taken out of the equation. And Shoto does not depend on his support items all that much. They're good. It's an additional layer onto his regulation and equilibrium, but it's not that necessary for him. So if he's able to take that away from Bakugo, and we've seen, like you said, that Bakugo's support items break pretty easily. It's dangerous.
I wouldn't say that it's that much different, honestly. The fact that, because Bakugo without his support items, it's not that much different. The only difference is he loses the ability to do that ultra move thing. He loses the access to excess sweat, right?
Right.
and he loses that additional brace. But is that much different from Todoroki, who loses the ability to heat himself up to higher extremes or freeze himself to deeper colds? I don't know what you call that, but you know what I'm saying? They lose the ability to go more extreme on both of them.
Right, and
they can still do what they do. Just
thing is though, like, how's he gonna get rid of Shoto's equipment?
No, he doesn't need to. I'm not saying he's going to, but I'm just saying it's not like Bakugo is crippled without his support items.
I mean, he's not at all, but it does take away a lot. Like, it does take some stuff out of his arsenal. And I mean, if Shoto wanted to be, you know, hard-headed enough, even without his support items, he could still pull off some of the same moves. It wouldn't be as easy. It'd probably be detrimental to him. But I think.
But same to Bakugo.
Bakugo,
he could let off those blasts too. It's hurting him.
That's fair.
Those blasts can come out.
I just feel like
we saw him do a good amount against All Might. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no. I just feel like Bakugo definitely needs his stuff more to, you know, pull off certain moves and have those. Like, he doesn't have grenades. The fact that he has grenades on his costume, he can't just do that in a regular fight without his stuff. So there's just certain things that he can do with his costume that he cannot otherwise, without, you know, breaking his limbs or something and doing something that's too irreparable. I think that Shoto has a slightly easier time handling things of that nature. It doesn't even seem like his, as far as we've seen in the series, it doesn't feel like, to me at least, his costume changes all that much in his output. I mean, we saw what he was able to do at the sports festival. Compare that to any other time, I don't think it's that drastic.
But I don't even think Todoroki is that. You know, we're talking right now. They fought right now. This is not a time skip fight or anything, right? I don't think Todoroki right now is great. He might be alright. I don't think he's great at balancing that hot and cold, at switching between them and heating one up to the extreme and switching to the other one to the extreme. He might fuck up and heat himself up to a point where, okay, I'm exhausted now. I don't think that's impossible in a fight right now for him, where he's trying to use both. He's not experienced with them like that, like Bakugo is experienced with his quirk. He might mess up.
I don't remember the last time that Shoto had a difficulty with that. I feel like that was more of a sports festival thing where it was showing, oh man, I should really use my fire right about now. Lately, I don't feel like, I don't believe I've seen him have a problem with that.
He hasn't had to fight like that though. Like, you know, like, he hasn't had to fight to the point where he's busting out both of them back and forth and it's getting crazy.
Against Stain, I mean, that was kind of crazy.
Really?
My man's was scared, bro.
That fight was not. He didn't do shit like that. Come on.
He didn't do like OD, but I mean, it's Stain. You saw how that man was handling everybody else. It was a pretty intense fight. I mean, that was more intense than his sports festival fights.
Stain?
Yo, Stain is a murderer. Are we talking for real?
Alright, bro.
Hello?
Alright, bro. You got it. I didn't think that was that impressive.
Am I tripping? Y'all can tell me if I'm tripping, but I think that was a life or death situation.
Let me make my point clear. I'm not saying, okay, that fight wasn't serious. That's not what I'm saying, right? It was obviously life or death. I'm just saying, I don't think he really showcased anything impressive like that with the hot and cold quirk at that point. It wasn't impressive.
I think that was our first time seeing him regulate it, and there wasn't a problem. That's what I'm talking about.
But it wasn't to how it would be in a fight against Bakugo, where this is crazy. You know, this fight against Bakugo, this is hot, intense.
I mean, look at the students, like the class 1A versus 1B. I mean, the only time that Todoroki went too far was when he was literally like trying to melt a man. And there's no way he would go that crazy, go that crazy against Bakugo. So I think innately it's just like a, you know,
I'm
it's
not
less
saying
of a
you
problem.
go that crazy with it. I'm just saying they're flipping back and forth between them. It's possible. I mean, we don't know the complete details like that. We haven't seen it in action that much, but I feel like flipping between the two of them might cause a problem. That's all. I'm just putting that in there.
Nah, I hear you.
I'm just saying it's possible.
Yeah, it's definitely a possibility.
Not like he's a master at this.
Yeah, if they wanted to write it like that, they could definitely do so.
He's not that experienced with it yet. This is only relatively recent. In the last year, he's been able to start using them together. He's not a master at it. That's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah. All right.
But yes, in the support item fight overall, I would agree with you that Todoroki has the advantage. That's the point. Yeah, I get you. Another thing I forgot to mention with defending himself against all this ice, Bakugo not only has his straight up blast, but in recent times he's developed the shotgun blast and the armor piercing shot, which maybe the shotgun one would be decent for breaking chunks of ice, but the armor pierce one could possibly lead to an attack directly on Todoroki that catches him off guard. Because you can't see what I'm doing through all your ice, right? And I send this armor-piercing shot through an ice, suddenly that might hit you. That might shake you up.
Yeah, I think that Bakugo is very creative with his quirk, almost akin to Luffy from One Piece at a certain point.
Yeah, he's very creative with it.
Yeah, he comes up with a lot of super moves, and you could tell that, he's put a lot of thought into his quirk. And I think he does have ways of dealing with the ice. The only thing is that he has to be dealing with the ice in of itself. That is like a certain stipulation that could be pretty problematic for him. And I mean, he does have a lot in his arsenal, but these are two characters that have seen each other fight and see what each other are capable of. So once again, Shoto is attempting to keep his distance at all times, mostly against Bakugo in this fight. So if Bakugo is using his armor-piercing shot, I don't know how much range that has on it, to where he'd be able to hit Shoto. If he does land a hit on Shoto, that would be, it'd be a pretty sizable hit.
Just an advantage. It's an advantage opportunity. You know what I mean?
Right. Right. He could capitalize on that.
He has a chance. And of course, that again just comes down to, okay, how things go from there. I get close to you, and okay, now what? You know?
Yeah.
So we end up at the same place. But I'm just trying to point out that he has more ways of disposing of this ice and possibly landing a sneak.
I honestly just chalk it up to just big explosion, break ice, and just equate it to that. Like, he could do whatever he wants. I don't think it is too.
But you keep making it seem
challenging.
Like it's a difficult. Like he's gonna have trouble with this. I don't think he's gonna have any trouble with the ice.
Really? No trouble at all. Wow. I feel like the ice is it's literally his biggest counter. The fact that it cools him down, he can't use his explosions as largely anymore, so he can't be as destructive as he would like to be. The fact that he has to be up in the air, so he isn't able to. Yeah, but he doesn't have his choice. He usually in a fight, he's able to decide when he wants to go in the air and be on the ground.
Let's not forget, just because there's ice on the ground doesn't mean he can't destroy it either. If he wants to go underground, he can destroy it.
Like I said before, though, he has to then deal with the terrain, and Shoto is then able to deal with him while he's dealing with the terrain and what have you. It's a multiple fronted assault. And he's also cooling down. Like I said, he doesn't have a strong explosive, so his ability to clear out that ice is drained as well. In their first fight, Shoto was exhausted and he, passed out or what have you, and didn't even use his full capability. So it's hard to even equate that entirely onto this. It definitely is substantial, but he wasn't going all out in that regard. So we didn't get to see that temperature aspect mingle itself in the battle too much, but Bakugo needs his sweat, and Shoto can just go.
The fight was quick, right? Relatively. The fight was relatively fast, but we didn't hear or see anything that I remember about mention of this, the cold being a factor for Bakugo at all. Logically, yes, he should.
It was a quick fight.
Yeah, but the fact that it wasn't even brought up, no commentary on it, nothing. It's
I think
is it not that?
I honestly,
bad? I don't know why that wasn't a thing at all. I know what you're saying. Logically, yes.
Yeah, no, I get you.
Ice, but
I think from a storytelling perspective only, I think that Horikoshi definitely did not want to make a clear winner between the two, and that's why he made it like a sort of a ball buster at the end, where you don't get to see them go all out against each other. And it's just a tease, really, because to do that, you'd be diminishing one character and elevating the other. And this is essentially your big three. Him, Shoto, Bakugo, and Midoriya are your big three. You don't want to make a clear decider between them so early into the series. I think that's just what it ended up being. But yeah, with that, I feel like we've gone on long enough. Once again, let us know how you guys feel about this particular fight, who you think would win based on especially the points that we both raised. My boy Shoto, or
the King of Murder, Bakugo.
King of Murder, who has not caught a single body. That's crazy.
That you know of. the biggest threats, you don't know what they do, okay?
Right. Yo, Shoto got that child trauma, my guy. He will.
Do you see what Bakugo deals with at home, bro?
Yo, them little hits, them little love taps. All right.
You see what he goes through? Nah, he's been through it, but whatever.
All right. But yeah, guys, thank you for joining us in this long-winded video. And also our first time having both of us in a single video at once. This was a very fun experience for me, at least.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too.
But yeah, hopefully we will see you in a future video and a future iteration of this series that we'd like to begin.
You gotta make it clear you enjoyed it though. Okay?
Yeah, let us know.
If you want more, let us know.
But yeah, you want to stick around because when it comes to bringing you some of the best My Hero Academia content on the platform, Plot Armor has you covered. As always, I am Slice of Otaku, this time joined.
Bye, KJ.
Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day.
I love you.
All right.
But yeah, bye.